Hi everyone, thanks for having me. A man goes to the doctor and he says, "Doc, I'm feeling really depressed lately. I've just lost all my joy in life. I'm tired all the time. I just don't know what to do. I've tried counselling, I've tried medication, nothing seems to work." The doctor thinks for a moment and then he says, "Well, this is a bit unconventional, but there's a circus in town. And I hear that the clown in that circus can make anyone laugh. Why don't you just buy yourself a ticket and go along, sit at the back and watch that clown and just have a good old laugh. See if it doesn't make you feel a little better." Can you guess what the man replies? Can you? He says, "Well, you see, the thing is, Doc, I am that clown." You know, the first time I heard that story, I cried because I felt like I was that clown. Let me tell you what happened. My dad was a pastor. And so by the age of about 10, I pretty much knew how churches were run. In fact, when we went on holiday as a family, we used to do our own little service. My mum would lead the music, my kid brother would do the reading, and I would preach. I preached to my family. And so it was no surprise that at the age of 18, I became a youth pastor, and at 23, I was a church minister, and at 29, I was the senior pastor of a large church. In fact, I was the youngest ever member of the Ministers of Larger Churches Conference. Oh, it felt so good. I was young, I was enthusiastic, I was confident. But the problem was I was only tending to the externals of life. And if you could have seen what was going on the inside, it would have told a different story. Because underneath, my insecurity and desperate desire for people to like me, my lack of a deep prayer life, and my sense of being a failure as a husband, because after 10 years of trying, my wife and I just couldn't seem to get pregnant. They were slowly eating me up on the inside. And in 2016, it all came to a head. I was at a conference. Yes, it was the Larger Churches Conference. I never wanted to miss that one. And I was sat at the back, I was listening to the speaker, and I suddenly realised I couldn't understand what was being said. It was like everything was underwater somehow. I thought, oh, maybe I've got the flu or something. I left early, I drove home, climbed into bed, and it was like a switch went off in the back of my head. I just shut down. Overnight, I went from being pretty high functioning to not being able to do anything at all. It wasn't as if when the phone rang, I didn't want to answer it. The thought of just looking at the screen to see who it was filled me with dread. I went to the doctor and he said, "Jim, you need to stop completely today." Well, this was 2 weeks before Christmas. I said I couldn't possibly. Maybe in January I can take a couple of weeks. He said, "Jim, you need to stop completely today." And he signed me off work for a month, and then another month, and then another month. And after 6 months, I resigned my position in the church. How had it got so bad? Well, we all know that God speaks to us through the Bible and through prayer and through other people, but he also speaks to us through our bodies. But I was ignoring the signs. I wonder if you can identify with any of these. I found that I was getting easily irritated and grumpy a lot of the time. I just lost my joy and creativity. I was doing the bare minimum to get by. My emotions were just flat. I never felt excited. I never felt crushed. I was just flat. I also had some physical symptoms. I used to get headaches and stomach problems. I found that I was gradually increasing my intake of coffee in the day and wine at night. Now, for some of you, this will be completely alien, but for others, it might just be a little too close for comfort. And the clincher in my decision to step back from church leadership at that time was over a coffee with a friend of mine called Ken. And up to then, people had given me lots of super spiritual advice, just trust in the Lord and all will be well. But Ken sat me down and he said this, he said, "Jim, what are the most important things in your life at the moment?" And without skipping a beat, I said my health, having a sustainable marriage, and starting a family. 1, 2, 3. And Ken said, "Well, why don't you do what's going to give those things the best shot of success? Is going back to the church going to give them the best shot?" I said, "No, it's going to give them the worst shot of success." And suddenly I had this moment of clarity. And so while it was undoubtedly one of the worst times of my life, everything about myself that I was proud of and that I relied on was taken away. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stop and do some soul searching and reprioritize the value I was placing on some things and not on others. And what really came home to me during that time, it sounds really obvious, is that we as humans are designed to work and to rest. And I found that this pattern that I'd been living of work, collapse, work, collapse, just isn't sustainable. And what I discovered during my time off is that sitting in front of the TV all day, what's called Netflix and chill, doesn't actually give you rest. It's not even about getting enough sleep, crucial though that is. It's also about resting while we're awake. That wise mentor who asked me, what's the most important thing in your life? He then took out a napkin and drew a little diagram on it. You may have seen it before. He said, I want you to imagine this is your emotional tank. And he got me to write down on the left-hand side all the things that fill my tank. Maybe sports or going for a long walk with my wife, Sarah. You might like to do this for yourself. And then he got me to write on the other side all the things that drain my tank. Maybe a stressful meeting or a difficult admin task. And then he said, Jim, you've got to have as many things coming in that fill your tank as going out that drain it. You only need a very basic understanding of physics to realize that he was absolutely right. But we don't. What do? Well, when we've got more things that drain our tank, when that right-hand tap is on full, we stop doing the things that fill our tank. We say, I haven't got any time for that sort of stuff at the moment. And so we get depleted even faster. Am I right? Well, if you're someone like me who generally tends to rush around the place, would you allow me just to give you one very practical suggestion that transformed my life? You ready? It's really deep. Take one day a week and slow down. I told you it was deep. Of course, the Bible word for that is Sabbath. And I literally mean walk slowly, talk slowly, even eat slowly. If you're really up for a challenge, make it a screen-free Sabbath. No TV, no internet, no phone, and just invest in that one day a week in recreation and relationships. It's easier said than done, of course, because if you are anything like me, then there may be part of us, if we're honest, that's a little bit afraid to slow down. Because maybe we're scared of what we might find. We'd have to look ourselves in the mirror. We'd have to face those demons that busyness keeps at bay. We may even have to do some business with God, and that's the hardest work that any of us will ever have to do. And these are tough questions. I spent 20 years trying to avoid them, so I don't want to give the impression that any of this is easy. But if anything in my story has resonated with yours or rung any alarm bells, then can I urge you to do something about it? Have an honest conversation with your loved ones or with your GP or with your church family. Please don't do what I did and wait until you crash, because it's not pretty. I'd like to recommend a couple of books, if I may, that really helped me. The first one is John Mark Comer, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Check out the Kitchen Table podcast where Catherine interviewed him last year. Second book is Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, The 4-Pillar Plan, full of lots of practical advice on living a balanced life. I'm going to start to come into close, and I'd like to read you a poem. It's a poem actually that I often use at funerals, and sometimes I wish I could have read it to the person before they died. It's called The Dash by Linda Ellis. And she writes this. I read of someone who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend, and they referred to the dates on his coffin from the beginning to the end. And they noted that first came the date of his birth. They spoke of the second date with tears. But they said what mattered most of all was the little dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time he spent alive on earth. And now only those who love him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of what they'd say about how you spent your dash? Guys, I hardly know any of you, much less the situations you're facing. I get how hard it is sometimes just to stay afloat without some preacher coming along and telling you to eat more slowly. I'm still very much learning. In fact, this is only the second time I've shared my story in public. I still live in a daily battle with ambition and stress and wanting people to like me. But there's one verse from Scripture that was given to me at my lowest moment, and I'd love to give it to you. It's just 11 words, and it's from Matthew 10, verse 31. And Jesus says this: "Do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." You know, when I couldn't produce anything, when I couldn't participate in anything, when I couldn't even answer the phone, much less preach a sermon, I discovered, as if for the first time, that God valued me, not for what I could do, but just for being me. So I'm here to tell you that there is hope. And for Sarah and I, the ultimate sign of God's blessing on our new way of life is that 18 months ago, after 12 years of trying and having turned 40 and almost given up hope, Sarah gave birth to Molly. Molly means longed for child, and her middle name is Hope. So whatever you're praying for at the moment, whether it's been 12 months or 12 years, may you never give up hope. Thanks so much for listening. God bless you.